Hello, Serie A fans, and welcome to another episode of the Total Football Analysis Serie A podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a winner. Juventus have clinched their 9th scudetto in a row, and we're going to discuss all of this with our TFA Serie A team. I am your host, Daniele Proch, and I am joined by football analyst Steve Coleman. Buongiorno, Steve.
Morning, Danny. How you going?
Doing pretty good, thanks. We're also joined by football analyst Tom Pearce. What's up, Tom?
Hey, all well, man.
And of course, we are joined by EPL podcast host Chris Mumford. How's it going, Chris?
Fabuloso.
Amazing. We're going to begin with the Juventus win against Sampdoria 2-0 because that secured the title for the Bianconeri, as well as setting some records for Juventus. So this is the 9th scudetto in a row, and Juventus now have 36 official titles. I'm saying official because they claim 38 because of the Calciopoli scandal that took away 2 scudettos in the 2004, 2005, and 2006 seasons. Now Juventus have as many scudettos as Milan and Inter, who both have 18. But let's talk first about the win against Sampdoria. What do you guys have to highlight from that game? You know, another goal from Ronaldo, a goal from Bernardeschi, who hadn't scored in Serie A for 2 years. What else happens? What else was remarkable in that game?
Well, I think Samp were hard done by, Danny, to be honest. I thought they had created some really good chances in the game, and I thought they probably deserved to get something out of it on the balance of it. But it's Juventus's 61st win over Sampdoria in Serie A, which is quite remarkable when you consider, you know, that how difficult they've had it in recent times. Yeah, I thought the free kick was excellent to open the scoring. How you don't mark Ronaldo from a set piece, even if he's stood some way from the ball and not really pretending to be interested in it is quite remarkable in that moment. But I
wouldn't mark him. He's only got 31 goals in the league, Steve. I wouldn't just...
You know, I had to go back and watch it 2 or 3 times from different angles to make sure that they hadn't done something crazy where he'd kind of run from nowhere and he'd lost a marker, but no one was marking him. So it looked a lot cleverer on the first go than it did on the subsequent ones. But it's disappointing from Samp's perspective. I thought they perhaps could have taken something from the game, but Bernardeschi definitely gives Juventus something different than they've had in recent weeks, that's for sure.
Juventus managed to keep a clean sheet, which hadn't happened in their previous 7 games in Serie A. And there were a couple of incredible saves by Juventus's keeper, Szczesny. Would you agree, Chris?
Absolutely. He is proving that he's worth every single lira that he's paid. I mean, it's crazy. He really should be the MVP of the game in my book because he had 3 or 4 really saves. Like, okay, how did that just happen? Yeah, no, he did well. I disagree with Steve. I think that first set piece was like magic to me. I kept watching that over and over again because the speed in which it was served over to Ronaldo and the way he was able to finish, that's crazy as far as I'm concerned. I will point out fault, you know, the Sampdoria goalkeeper coughing up that shot. He should have held on to that. I really think that's square. His coach is going to have a word with him about that second goal for Juve. If you do look at understat, it does have Juve at 3.49 and Samp at 1.09. So I'm not sure how the math is wrong because I do think that Szczesny seems like he did a lot more work than 1.09's worth of expected goals.
Yeah, but Juventus missed that chance late on Ronaldo where Yoshida comes across and clears off the line, which is probably a 0.8 chance in itself. How he gets across and clears it is remarkable, really. But just back to the free kick. I don't know whether you can argue that it was so well done or whether there was 3 men not marked in the box. You know, everyone's expecting a shot from that distance, but how you can not have people in the box to pick up rebounds or whatever is remarkable. And it's just another example of defending being optional this week, I'm sure.
So much for that vaulted Italian defense, huh? This time of year.
Absolutely.
It doesn't apply for late
July.
summer games.
Yeah.
But Ronaldo scored his 31st goal in the league. He's still 3 goals behind Ciro Immobile. But we usually see Ronaldo pacing himself in games. Sometimes in the recent years he has taken games off because I guess he always wants to be 100% when he steps on the field. But since restart, he has played every game. Not only that, but his 10 goals after the lockdown are more goals than any other players in the top 5 leagues in Europe. We have Raheem Sterling from Man City, who scored 9, as well as Robert Lewandowski, who scored 9. So Ronaldo's 35. What do you guys think about him playing every game since restart, considering the heat, considering the pressure, still making a difference? And like I said, not pacing himself as he has done in the past years.
Well,
yeah, it kind of. Sorry, go on.
My take on it is that he's had more time off this summer than he has probably in the last decade, right? Because of COVID. So he's coming in fresh. There's going to be a couple of weeks or maybe a week's break before he kind of has to get ready for Champions League. I say he's doing something. He's either got the right trainer or he has done a deal with the devil, and he's going to keep rolling with it. And I wouldn't fuss with it otherwise. Tom, what were you going to say?
Well, he's kind of altered his game style in the past couple of years, really. So he's not really doing as much running as he was in the past. But I suppose this season he's actually kind of gone against that in a sense that he's dropping back a bit more, trying to get the ball to feet and trying to take on a bit more than he was at least last season. So yeah, you can only imagine it was that large break in July, before July, that's helped him really.
And it helps when you get to take a lot of penalty kicks. He has scored 12 goals out of 13 penalty kicks that Juventus that he took this season. By the way, he missed this past weekend against Sampdoria. He missed a PK. He hit the crossbar. So that makes Immobile the best penalty kick taker in Serie A. We're talking about PK takers with at least 5 PKs during this season. Chris, I know you have some controversies to rise about the fact that Serie A is seeing a lot of PKs being considered.
It's the handball PK mecca. They're going to be all these strikers moving over to Serie A because the living is easy. Food is good and the living is easy on the pitch. So yeah, I'm really disappointed with that. You've heard me say in the past, I think they need to go to an indirect kick for non-intentional handballs within the box, and let's get back to playing football instead of playing kickball from 12 yards out.
With this league title win, Juventus set the longest streak in Europe's top 5 leagues. Only Bayern Munich is chasing them, I guess, with 8. And also, Sarri became the oldest head coach to win Serie A. He is a 61-year-old. And despite that, he has been criticized a lot during the season. But you know what? Also, Massimiliano Allegri was criticized a lot when he was Juventus' manager. I have a question for you guys. Is it because Juventus' fans are a little spoiled now and they just don't want to win, but they also expect now their side to play champagne football? Is that what's happening right now?
Yeah, that might be the case. I think it takes Sarri a little while to implement his ideas and to get his full kind of process across to his team. I think there's been times, certainly we've spoken about in the last few weeks, where they've been quite slow and methodical and lacking the punch that I think a lot of their fans would like them to have. I think there's when you win so often, you'd like there to be a winning with enjoyment as opposed to expected. And I think it will take him a little while to really turn this team into into his own team, but at the same time, he still has to manage the personalities and the superstardom of some of their squad. So, I think he's done a job that people were expecting him to do, but whether he could have done any better is the ultimate question, isn't it?
So that's where I want to ask both you and Tom. Could a chimpanzee have managed Juventus this season? I mean, they've got so much talent on the pitch, right? And the principles of Saudi ball, I'm not seeing in consistently when Juve plays. And it could be my lack of understanding within tactics, or is it just that he needs more time to implement those principles? But I don't see that Jorginho sort of playmaking. I see Ronaldo making runs and them hitting balls over the top, almost 1980s style British football. Tom, help me unpack that.
Well, they've got their squad's just been aging over the past few seasons, hasn't it? You know, you still got Matuidi and Khedira getting pretty decent minutes in this side, and obviously Ronaldo's 35. But it looks quite thin in some areas, like in striker, they've only really got Dybala, Higuain, and then Ronaldo. But Dybala's not really been playing as a striker this season. But actually, I read a piece this morning from Laurie, who's been on this podcast, about Juventus's defensive vulnerability, because this is the most they've conceded in the season for I don't know how many seasons, but for quite some time now. And it is interesting because obviously De Ligt took a little while to adapt, but that's to be expected for a 20-year-old who just came from the Netherlands. And then you've had Bonucci, who's not had the greatest season, so it's a mix of sort of everything, I suppose. But Szczesny's been brilliant in goal for them this season, I'd say. I'd say he's been probably the best goalkeeper in Serie A.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about them conceding the most goals, they conceded 38 so far this year. So there's only Atalanta who've conceded less goals than them at 36. Sorry, Inter Milan at 36. So, but when you think about Sarri ball, Chris, it's very, very much, we have the ball and we have a particular style. But at the same time, when I think about Sarri's defensive organisation, the way he likes his teams to play, it's all quick counter pressing, get the ball back, let's get hard the pitch and get after the ball and dominate without the ball as well as with it. And I think with the team he has, Ronaldo does very little defending, as we discussed before. You know, he does his own section of the pitch, and it's probably about a 4 metre square area where he covers, and if the ball goes in there, he'll win it back. But other than that, he'll do what's just about required of him. It's very difficult to create a pressing action side with, like Tom says, an aging side, but also with players who are comfortable playing in a Allegri system where they're very much a deeper defensive block to play on the counter, and then when they have the ball, they can dominate the game that way. So I think it will take him a little while to implement exactly how he wants to do things, but at the same time, it's good management. The fact that he's been able to manage those egos and those superstars to do what he wants them to do, but also what they're wanting to do at the same time.
Well, I found it interesting because when he was at Chelsea, I was struck by how dogmatic he was, and his man management. Maybe he had one bad apple. He had Kepa, right? But to see how he had difficulty with a 20-some-odd keeper not wanting to come off the pitch, to now us lauding him and saying how awesome he is with Juve's aging, superstars. Hats off to him because he is the first banker to win Serie A. That's cool, right? So hats off to bankers. But I don't get it, and I'm wondering if maybe he's going to step off in terms of philosophy a little bit, because I think dogma has a way of getting in the way of winning games sometimes, and maybe he's moving to more pragmatic given the pieces he's got in front of him. And it seems to be the dogmatic type coaches, they're not lasting a whole lot unless you have sovereign funds behind you where you can afford to be too deep in every position.
Yeah, to clarify,
I think he's starting to change a few things though, isn't he? With some signings coming in and guys leaving. I think he'll start to shift things more in his direction. But like you say, his philosophy is his way, and he's tweaked some things and added certain things. You know, Ronaldo running in behind in the last couple of weeks as opposed to coming off the front. And they don't have a lot of legs, for example. And we spoke a couple of weeks back about them being a little bit more direct, didn't we? But I think he'll just tweak certain things until he's got what he needs. But I don't think he's ever going to have exactly what he needs until he loses Ronaldo at the top, or he's able to get somebody alongside him who can act as more of a defensive forward for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to clarify Chris's joke, for those who don't know, Maurizio Sarri was working in a bank before getting into professional coaching, and he was actually coaching on the side, starting from the amateur leagues in Italian football. But I agree, managing champions is a skill, and not all coaches can do that. So hats off for Sarri. He won, so he's when you're on the winner's side, you're always right. But it's gonna be hard. It's harsh to say, but I think that a lot of Juventus fans will fully evaluate Sarri's work and Sarri ball, if we want, in the next 2 or 3 weeks when Champions League come around, and because that's what happened with Allegri. Juventus fans always wanted the league, but Allegri was missing that trophy, the Champions League. So we're going to see Juventus playing the second leg against Lyon on August 7th. And that's when most of the criticism, I expect, will be directed at Sarri if things don't go the Juventus' way. Do you guys think that Juventus was also a little lucky, which you need, obviously, to win a league after restart? Because they did lose a few games. They were not in the best form. They lost against Milan. They lost against Udinese. They tied Sassuolo and Atalanta. But the teams chasing Juventus were really not collecting points. Would you guys agree?
We'll come to that in a while. I've got some stuff for you on that in a while, for sure.
Sounds good. And, well, I'll use that as an assist to jump into the match analysis of Milan against Atalanta, 1-1. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, what I will say is these are probably the two most formed sides in Serie A right now, with the most attacking threat, barring one or two other notable sides. But I was expecting a bit of a game riddled with goals, but instead both teams spent most of the game cancelling each other out, unfortunately, which for the guy tuning in just to watch a decent game of football was a bit of a shame. But for me, it was a real tactical battle with two good quality sides, with managers tweaking little things to try and give them an advantage in the game. So I think in the end it lacked the final punch in the final third for a lot of the good stuff that both sides created with attacking platforms. So if you take Atalanta to start with, obviously their use of Zapata is so crucial to the way they want to play, and in this game they used him as a focal point at the top with almost like a double 10 underneath him with Gomez and Malinowski, creating really good pockets of space for them to play in, and that really helps Atalanta. But it's only effective if they can get their wing backs high up the pitch. So in their 3-5-2 system, they get their wing backs nice and high to create almost like a front three with Zapata. And they actually, in this game, used the two number sixes to drop in between the back three to almost make like a back four, and encourage either side of the back three to become fullbacks, which was a really neat way of doubling up in the wide areas. So you had lots of opportunities for Gomez, especially to get on the ball. And his combination play with Zapata, as we've spoken about before, is so dangerous from open play that Gasperini's done a great job to move them much closer together since the restart. So that was the kind of Atalanta's way forward. But Milan also on a slightly different tack to try and create a dominance in the centre of the pitch, but also access wide areas where Atalanta's wing-backs would have been outnumbered, used their two number sixes, so Biglia and Kessie in this game to narrow Atalanta into the middle of the pitch, which enabled them to go around the outside with their fullbacks moving on, and also allowed, if they did spread out, Atalanta and defend across the pitch, for them to go through as they did on occasion, and that allowed them to access Ibrahimovic at the top straight away, which created a lot of good opportunities for them as well. So Pioli also narrowed off the three at the top alongside Ibrahimovic to create a real narrow front three, and that gave space for Çalhanoğlu in that central 10 position to get on the ball and dominate. But the first thing I'm going to give Chris as a bit of a side pass is what do you think of the goalkeeping for the first goal?
Well, I don't know. I have to tell you, that was an absolutely ridiculous shot. I mean, first of all, as a goalkeeper, you're thinking he's not stupid enough to take a shot from there, right? And I think it's Golini, right? His footwork did not look too shabby, and the target was about this big, and he put it right in the target. And I think if he took that 10 times, maybe he gets hit a half a time. I don't know what to say about it. I'm going to give Golini a pass on that one, to be honest.
Really? Well, I'm surprised at that. I thought he would get a bit of a roasting for that.
It's low angle, and he didn't have a clear view on it. And then by the time he realized this guy's stupid enough to take a shot from here, the ball's already in the back of the net. So I'm gonna give a pass to the keeper on this, and I'm allowed to do a couple of during the season, right?
Chris, that Çalhanoğlu free kick reminded me of a free kick that David Beckham scored in 2009 against Genoa. David Beckham was, as you guys know, was playing for AC Milan for a little bit. In that, the position of the free kick was the same. In that case, Beckham went for the near post. Çalhanoğlu went for the far post. But the pace on the ball was very similar. By the way, Chris, Golini did get his fingers on the ball. Just wasn't able to deflect it.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give him a pass, and I will tell you, that this was one of my matches of the week. Right, I had my popcorn ready, I had my soda water ready to go, and it starts out exactly the way I thought it was. But then at the end, there were 6 shots on target, right? And in the second half, I probably should have cleaned the kitchen and the bathrooms because it didn't feel like the energy levels were there, right? So I felt in the first half, this thing had some problems, the first 20 some odd minutes. And then it just seemed like people looked at the league tables and said, I'll tell you what, you go at this pace, I go at this pace. And I was a little disappointed, frankly.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned earlier. I thought they cancelled each other out for most of the game, barring 2 or 3 different little moments. But even without the penalty that Donnarumma saves, obviously, I don't think it's a great penalty. But I think Biglia is lucky to still be on the pitch. We're not going to talk too much about VAR, but stamps on the guy on the ground, it looks pretty ugly. The more you see it, the worse it looks. The double jeopardy rule around, you can't give away a penalty and be sent off at the same time is fair, but I think it's a reckless stamp at the very least, and I think he's lucky. But I think without the save, Atalanta probably win the game on the balance of it, and they would have been disappointed not to close the gap, obviously, on Juventus. And I think the league could have been a whole lot different had they nicked a win against Juventus and won this game. I think it would have been interesting, especially after Juventus left the door ajar with their defeat at Udinese a couple of days before. So, I think it promised a lot this one, and maybe disappointed on balance that we didn't get a bit more out of it.
I hope this is not the Atalanta that shows up against PSG, because then the wrong team's going to win as far as I'm concerned. So I hope they get their mojo back.
Look, I want to give credit to Atalanta because they keep increasing their personal record for points in Serie A. They currently sit at 75 points. And like Chris mentioned in the previous pod, if you compare the amount of points that they have with their budget, then they're doing really incredible things. And we'll see about the Champions League match, because it's going to be interesting with Kylian Mbappe right now questionable. He went out in a friendly game for
injury. Ruled out this morning. They said he's been ruled out this morning.
Oh, so he's not going to play?
Yeah. No.
That's going to help the back three of Atalanta for sure. Steve, do you have anything else to add about this game?
No, not really. I think it's maybe Atalanta will look at it as an opportunity missed with Juventus stumbling a little bit over the last 2 or 3 games. I think they might be disappointed, but yeah, they're continue on their march. Hopefully they can keep the side together and just add 1 or 2 to it for next season. And I think you might see them in and around the title race again next season for sure.
Well, you just said that we're not going to talk about VAR, but it's going to be hard not to mention VAR in Napoli-Sassuolo. This game this past weekend finished 2-0 for the Partenopei, but there was a record that was set. 4 goals were disallowed by VAR and 4 goals were disallowed for Sassuolo. I feel like this record will remain intact for many, many years, and we're going to have Tom unpack what happened during this game.
Yeah, it was mental. All 4 were offside goals, and I think it was 3 times VAR ruled it out, and then one of them was just ruled as offside anyway. But generally, Napoli were the better side in this game. They enjoyed a lot of freedom down the left side with Husai, I hope I've said that right, Zielinski and Insigne. And Sassuolo just seemed very static defensively, and you could see that in the first goal. Husai comes toward the box, and he literally waltzes past 2 Sassuolo defenders. They just let him roll right through, and he just takes a shot into the bottom right corner. That's his first goal for Napoli, I think, after like 200 appearances. So that's nice to see for him. But generally, they found a lot of enjoyment through Zielinski, just running down the core of the pitch and passing it out wide to Insigne to link up with Milik. And it was generally just quite easy to pass it around Sassuolo. Sassuolo did have their chances, but they all ruled offside. The one which I would call them most unfortunate for was the Caputo goal, because he purposefully stood still to stay on side, and then had finishes his chance with aplomb. But that I would call that one unfortunate. But the other 3 ones were just quite clearly offside. But no, you could see that they're still missing Boga. His directness to just dribble at a defence kind of instills that sort of fear, which they're missing at the moment. Who came in? Hamid Junior Traore came in, and he did well, but he doesn't bring the same type of style to the team, which they're clearly missing at the moment.
And that brings up a question that Chris was asking before airing. Is this Sassuolo team going to be able to keep up with the intensity and the pace that they have shown in these past weeks, or don't they have enough depth to do that? Or Tom, what do you think how do you think they're gonna look for next season?
Well, they just need to sort out that defence, be it the goalkeeper or the centre backs. They're conceding far too many goals. They can score. I think they've scored 62 goals in the league, which is pretty decent return. But they just need to sort out their stuff defensively. It's just far too easy to pass around them, and they're just far too static whenever they're approached in the final third.
Yeah, we'll see what manager Roberto De Zerbi will do when it's time to act on the transfer window. Do you have anything else to add about this game tactically?
No, not really. It was a game that was just won through the width, really, down the wings. It was kind of won and lost through that.
And just a reminder, guys, if you want to check out Steve and Tom's piece about the Milan Atalanta game and Napoli-Sassuolo game, just head to totalfootballanalysis.com and you can find a detailed match analysis. Let's talk about what happened at Marassi when Inter blew away Genoa with a 3-0 win. Great performance again by Romelu Lukaku, and a header, and then a magnificent dribble at the end to score his 23rd goal of the season. Steve, I know that you were talking about this game beforehand. What do you have to highlight about it?
Yeah, I thought Inter were really bright and really good value. We spoke recently about Conte not allowing his team off the hook in terms of their work ethic and their energy. So you always expect them to bring good behaviours onto the pitch. I think Eriksen and Lukaku are really beginning to build a really good understanding in and around the edge of the penalty area. But I thought Genoa got caught between kind of two plans in the first kind of half an hour. To be fair to them, they went after Inter, started to get after the ball a little bit, and then got done on the counter as they pushed players on. Then they almost flipped into right. We got a bit stake and pat and make sure we stay in the game for as long as we can and try and nick something from a set piece or something. So they sat deeper, but then couldn't defend around their box and got done for the second goal. And then the third one they get done trying to push on and nick something from the game. And Lukaku's last goal was a fantastic solo effort. But like I mentioned earlier, defending optional at times for Genoa in this one. The defending of Crescito for the second goal is generally horrific defending for a defender of that level. You know, he allows the wide player to get past him easily and then doesn't even attempt to try and get back and defend the ball. So yeah, into good value. Genoa, lucky that Lecce are doing slightly worse than them at the moment.
Yeah, Genoa currently are 4 points ahead of Lecce. So Genoa need 2 more points to save themselves, proving that Lecce win both their games against Udinese and Parma. But you're right. We're seeing a lot of sloppy defending in this past matches. Mostly, I guess it's because teams have nothing to play for and players are tired. They get lazy. So
I want to give some credit when credit's due. I mean, Lukaku, you know what he's going to do, right? You know how he's going to do it. Even though you do that, you still can't stop him. And I love the diversity. You know, he heads in a beautiful one in that first goal from about 7 yards out, right? And then he just decides to dribble down 40, 45 yards and weave through a couple players and finish what I thought was a beautiful finish. So I'm really struck by how older strikers, and Lukaku is not old yet, but he kind of plays an old school style. But even like an Ibra, how, you know, it seems like they're at the right place at the right time sort of thing. And that's just because they've got it figured out when to make those runs, right? They trust their gut. And, you know, maybe let's fault the Italian defenders. I don't want to throw all the Italian defenders in Serie A under the bus. But, you know, you're starting to see this and it's like, okay, this is happening again and again. And there are a lot of shots where they're just giving people 1 or 2 yards. It looks like my Sunday football match, right? Where we just don't want to bother picking up. Except we're not making millions of bucks like these guys are, or hundreds of thousands of lira, right?
Chris, you mentioned the last goal by Lukaku. I think it was especially beautiful because, well, first off, it was during stoppage time. So he had all the reason in this world to be tired. But then he did a scissor with his left foot, which is his dominant foot, moved the ball with his right, cut back in, had like the sharpness to cut back in and then place it with his left foot. So it was a goal that really showed how complete of a striker he is. You know, right foot, left foot, and being able to dribble, to carry the ball. Like you mentioned, first goal was a header. So for sure, great addition to the league, Lukaku, and one that will play a fundamental role for Inter going forward. So guys, basically what happened this past Serie A weekend, we have a winner. The top 4 have been decided for a week now. So what is left to decide is relegation. We talked about how Genoa need 2 more points to not relegate. We have the Europa League, which is a matter of Roma, Napoli, and Milan. So basically Milan want to chase the 5th place because that will guarantee direct access to Europa League without going through the preliminary phase. And then I guess we have a golden boot race between Immobile, who currently has 34 goals, and Ronaldo, who has 31. Immobile is 2 goals away from tying the all-time Serie A record for goals set by Gonzalo Higuain at 36. But other than that, really, there is nothing else to play for, and that's why we have Steve bring back the enthusiasm about this final 2 rounds of Serie A. He has created a table of Serie A since restart, and I haven't seen it. I admit I haven't seen it, but I feel like there are going to be a lot of surprises. So go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, so I just got some interest over the weekend around who'd actually done the best since the restart. Obviously, we've spoken a lot about the relegation battle and who was down there, and some of the sides around that bottom table have actually done pretty well, picking up points to move themselves up into an area where perhaps they should have been to start with, as opposed to where they were. But just out of interest, who's doing the best in the league since the restart, do you think?
Milan.
It comes down to Milan, Sassuolo, and Atalanta, but I think, yeah, it's Milan.
Okay. All right. So Atalanta at the moment have 8 wins and 3 draws from their games so far. They have 27 points since the restart. So they're top of our restart table. Milan is second, 7 wins, 3 draws, 24 points. And they sit second. And do you remember a little while ago, I had the theory that Juve and Napoli were pretty similar if you take Ronaldo out of the side. Yeah. So at the moment, Juve and Napoli have both got the same record: 1-5, drawn 2, lost 2, 17 points since the restart. It's quite interesting. So Juve are 4th, Napoli are 5th, Roma are 6th currently on the table since the restart. Roma are 6th. Roma are 7th based on 16 points. But there's a big gap after Sampdoria in 8th. And then there starts to be a big drop off.
Where is Lazio?
So Lazio currently are 12th. They've won 3, drawn 1, and lost 5 since the restart.
Wow,
bad, isn't it?
So they're 10 points. You wouldn't find them anywhere near the top. But Lazio, Verona, Fiorentina, Lecce, and Cagliari are all on 10 points in that middle of the table.
Wow, and Lazio were expected to challenge Juventus until the end. I remember when we talk about that July 20th match between Juventus and Lazio was supposed to be like the title decider, but it just didn't happen because Lazio dropped many points along the way.
Well, they lost 3 in a week that week. So they lost to Atalanta, Milan, and Sassuolo all in that same week. So that was the end of that title race. But it's no surprise down the bottom, Spal have only picked up 1 point since the restart with 1 draw. Brescia 5 points, 1 win and 2 draws. And then interestingly, Genoa and Torino have the same record: 1-2, drawn 2, lost 5, 8 points. While Lecce obviously have picked up 10. So it's been on par. You'd suggest that Lecce might make that a little bit closer, but the gap that they had to begin with has been the real issue for them. How far away they were from the chasing pack. But if you remember, we spoke about the relegation battle when the season restarted. We said there was probably 8 teams involved in the relegation battle. Mm-hmm. So those teams, for example, Udinese and Sampdoria. Sampdoria have collected 15 points since the restart: 5 wins, no draws, and 4 losses. Udinese 11 points, 3 wins, 2 draws. So those two who we were suggesting were underachieving have probably achieved what we'd expect them to achieve, and because of that moved pretty comfortably away from that relegation battle, and turned it into a 6-horse race, and then into obviously a 2-horse race as it is now. So yeah, be interesting to see who would get relegated and who would win the title with two rounds to go now. I think there's about 9 teams that could still be relegated on this table, and there's still 3 teams that could win the league. So we'll see what happens.
I wonder, so if you had asked this question before restart happened, I would have put all my money on the fact that the teams with the deeper rosters would have just been first, even in this table. But surprisingly, Juventus are just 4th or 5th, correct?
They're 4th, yeah. So they've 1-5, drawn 2, lost 2. I think the 2 they've lost, obviously they got beat by Milan. They were 2-0 up against Milan, got beat 4-2, and then Udinese just on this week, where we thought the title was pretty much over. and Udinese needed a couple of extra points. Maybe the motivation levels were higher on one side than they were on the other. But I think that the two have been the two draws. You know, they scored 3 or 5 goals in those 2 games and picked up 2 draws where they conceded the same amount of goals. So, Sassuolo 3-3 and Atalanta 2-2 were 2 games where it could have gone either way. They could have lost both games, to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one comment. You know, I made this over in the EPL podcast. The EPL is so out of parity right now, right? You've got Liverpool way ahead and you've got Man City pretty well ahead. You look at Spain and of course you've got Real and Barca way ahead of everybody else. The only place to find some legitimate competition is in Serie A, and that's been a lot of fun to watch. I will say that Juve have been a fairly uninspiring champion, right? I mean, they have, you know, they've tied 2 and lost 2, right? And they've only won 4. So you wouldn't expect that from a champion, but it's making the league a little more interesting. I just wonder if Juve is going to have what it takes going forward, because I think everyone's kind of like, okay, yeah, they won pretty well. So I'm loving the storylines, but with Inter, Atalanta, Lazio has kind of lost its mojo, and you're hoping that Milan can make the crossover back with its fairly young squad. So I'm actually really looking forward to next season to see where the opportunities are. Yeah,
I think Lazio have really got to strengthen their depth. You know, we've seen in the last 2 or 3 weeks, they just don't have enough depth to counter the amount of games that they've played in this period of time. They had 5 or 6 players that have played it nearly every minute of every game. And to be fair, Chris, like you say, if you take Ronaldo out of that Juve side, I don't think they finish anywhere near the top. To be quite frank with you, I think they're a long way off.
Yeah, or Szczesny, either one of those. You pull them out, and you pull out 4 goals or 5 goals. All of a sudden, we've got a real dogfight on our hands, and that's a lot of fun. Now, keep in mind your point about Lazio. They've got a 72 million euro payroll compared to Juve's 300, Inter's 140, Roma's 125, Milan's 125, Napoli's 103. So they're still punching above their weight. The only exception is Atalanta, who's got a measly 40 million euro payroll.
Yeah, but there's a quote from Max Allegri that I like a lot. He kept repeating, winning is never easy. I don't care how much we've won in the past. I don't care what players we have. Winning and doing so for so many years like Juventus are doing is not easy. So even though, yes, Juventus haven't shown to be the most brilliant team in the past weeks, at the end of the day, how many times do we say they find a way to win? And yes, Ronaldo obviously helped a lot, but all big teams have top players that make a difference, right? In the next 2 rounds of Serie A, so round 37 and round 38, if I were to mark up a few games, I would say take a look at Napoli-Inter to be played Tuesday, July 28th. And then this upcoming weekend, we have Atalanta-Inter, Sunday, August 2nd. We also have Napoli-Lazio and Juve-Roma. What games do you guys are you guys going to watch this weekend?
Milan Sampdoria.
Okay, why?
Is one? Oh, just my
according to your table, yes, it's actually one of the best games. You're right.
Yeah. So that's one game that's interesting. I think it'll be quite an interesting tactical battle between Pioli and Ranieri. And then Lecce Udinese is another one. Lecce need something from the last 2 games. I think it's pretty much over for them now, but it's one of 2 they can target, and if they could nick something from this game, it would make it a very interesting final day, that's for sure.
So I'm not going to go for the hipster games like Steve's watching there. I'm going to go for the tried and true traditionalist. The Inter-Atalanta game to me I've got that circled 2 times. And then I've got the Napoli-Lazio game because I think they are pretty well on par with each other. And I'm hoping they don't cancel themselves out, and we have a good match out of it. So
and the Atalanta Inter game is a good one if you guys are trying to watch and to see how the two managers employ a backline of three, because I would argue that Inter and Atalanta, they do it differently, especially Inter tend to push one midfielder, in recent times Eriksen, higher, versus Atalanta, they play with kind of two trequartisti, if that makes sense. Tom, what are you going to watch?
I'm in agreement with Chris. Anytime Atalanta play, I'm interested. And that's an interesting point, actually. Two teams who play three at the back, but they play three at the back in very different ways, don't they? So it should make for an interesting matchup, hopefully. I
agree. Well, thank you, Steve, Chris, and Tom, for your comments and analysis. We're going to wrap up our show, and we will be back next Tuesday to wrap up the entire 2019-2020 Serie A season. And why not also start looking at what to expect from the following year, which will kick off actually in just a few weeks. Ciao.